Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to a rarity here, a documentary review, but still related to horror, with Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street from 2019. Now, I don't do documentary reviews that often, with only a few previous ones that I can think of, such as VHS Massacre I did a little while back, The YouTube Effect, Val from a couple of years ago, and In Search of Darkness. But every now and then I like to kind of, set some time aside to sit down with a documentary such as this one, for which the synopsis is as follows. A retrospective look at A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge from 1985, and the life of its lead actor, Mark Patton. Now, I had seen this one a few years back, and I mentioned it in a video that I did for Nightmare on Elm Street 2 when I was revisiting that franchise about a year and a half ago. And it actually improved that film for me in some ways. Now, don't get me wrong, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 is by far not my favorite in the series. But after learning a bit more about the film and those involved, I'd given it this other chance when going through that whole franchise, and I was surprised that I actually did enjoy it quite a bit more. Now, this documentary covers a bit about the horror genre in general, as well as the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and just how huge and explosive it was, and how horror back then for an actor could either make or break their career. It might give them a lot of great opportunities to kind of get in on the ground floor with horror, or they could get typecast and kind of never get out of that genre. And for Patton, this was a starring role, something huge, this sequel to a giant horror film. But the movie was not really received all that well by both critics and fans. They just felt that it kind of fell flat. And on top of all of that, all of this was being experienced by him as a gay man in Hollywood, having to keep that aspect of himself secret, not just because of how gay men were perceived back then in general, but because of this booming AIDS crisis that was taking hold. So we get some interesting stories about what life was like back then for him and many other gay actors, and those kind of caught up in how Hollywood was reacting to the AIDS crisis, such as some actors refusing to even work with a gay man for fear because they might have AIDS. So coming out wouldn't just most likely cause an issue with typecasting, if they got work at all, but at being outright denied various roles because of that fear surrounding AIDS. Now, for some of you younger generations, you may not understand, this kind of panic, but AIDS was very different back then. It was not only still seen as primarily a gay disease, but it was one which was practically a death sentence because there was a lack of any kind of therapies really being developed at the time around this, and it was really spreading quickly. Now, this documentary also has a lot of interesting interviews, especially some like reunions that they had via various cons with actors, directors, and writers from the time, and from this film in particular, and most importantly, how this whole documentary kind of came about, how Patton was so far out of the limelight when they'd done a previous documentary about A Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe it was called Never Sleep Again from, I think it was 2010, but it was difficult to even track him down. They actually had to hire a private investigator to even find him. That's how far he just kind of left the Hollywood system. But I would say the best thing about this is how the experience, which ended up not being the big breakout film of his acting career, eventually was embraced by some fans, and how welcoming they were as he kind of re-entered the horror world via these cons and interviews and other events such as anniversary showings. And as I said, I'd seen this one a few years back, and with A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 had come to mind recently the other day, I just wanted to revisit this documentary. I really thought that I would not really enjoy it as much since I'd already seen it before, but I guess it, so much has happened over the past 3 or 4 years since I saw it last that a lot of this still felt very interesting and very fresh. And there were some parts of some interviews that I, really remembered well, but even so, it was great revisiting that. Because it goes so far beyond just what this film was, how it came to be, and the impact or lack of impact it seemed to have as far as how it was received within the horror fandom, but even further into what exactly was happening behind the scenes in the industry. So even if you didn't enjoy A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 overall, or even just thought it was kind of so-so, this one is definitely more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this quick little recommendation video here for Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street from 2019, which at the time of this video is available on Tubi if you're interested in checking it out. And of course, while it was there, Tubi had recommended some other documentaries since I was watching this one, and I've added a bunch of those to my already too large queue of films to check out, so maybe I'll have some more documentaries popping up every now and then. So be sure to, subscribe and hit that little bell icon to get notification for when I put those up. Anyways, thanks for coming by and for sticking around to the end, as I do have I'll link to a couple other docs at the end here. They'll be popping up in just a second. Anyways, like I said, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.